eminent audience. First of all, I am thankful to Dr. Juan Lucas Restrepo, who is the Director General of Alliance of Biodiversity International and C8 Global Director of Partnerships and Advocacy in CGIAR. Dr. John, thank you very much for accepting our request. And let me just tell you the importance of this lecture series. This is 33rd lecture in the series of ICAR lecture series, which we organize to commemorate the 75 years of India's independence, which we are going to complete on 15th August 2022. And in that series, we have invited many important speakers, experts, policymakers, motivational speakers. And in that series only, we requested you to kindly agree to deliver this important lecture on a very important topic. And that topic is CGIAR's engagement in the post-UN Food System Summit. Very important lecture in today's context when we are talking for the food security, we are talking for the nutritional security, and we are talking to produce the healthy food for the world's growing population without harming the planet. And this food summit also brings together governments, businesses, farmers, indigenous peoples, youth, academicians, and citizens to produce a detailed roadmap to a world where good food is affordable and accessible and produced with minimal damage to the natural systems that sustain life on Earth. In that, I think there is a very important role of ICAR, there is a very important role of CGIAR, and today's lecture can really bring out many issues which can help us in knowing what can be the key role of CGIAR, what can be the key role of different other stakeholders. Friends, let me just briefly introduce Dr. Juan Lucas. Though he's a well-known figure, a well-known expert, but still I will take to just give a brief account about his achievements and about his career. Dr. Juan Lucas Restrepo is the Director General of the Alliance of Biodiversity International and the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, which we know popularly as C8, a CGIAR center. He has also been recently appointed as Global Director of Partnership and Advocacy at CGIAR. A Colombian and French national, Juan Lucas has worked in the agricultural domain, both in public and private sectors for the past 25 years. He has significant experience in policy, value chains, markets, and in leading agricultural research. He has supported the work of CGIAR through the various governance roles he held over the years of the Committee of Genetic Resources, Oversight and Executive Committees, and as the representative of the Colombian government on the C8 Board of Directors as an ex officio member. Among other positions, Juan Lucas has served as the Vice Minister of the Colombian Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Chief of the Colombian Federation of Coffee Growers, and for the last 8 years as the Executive Director of Agrovacia, the largest agricultural research organization of the country. As its chair, Juan Lucas also led the Global Forum for Agricultural Research, GFAR, we know, hosted by Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and its efforts to integrate the agricultural research for development, community, and change and innovation by the farmers. Dr. Lucas, in this particular platform, we have very important audience, very learned audience. We have our Director General, Dr. Mahotsav, who is also the Secretary of DARE. We have many Vice Chancellors. We have many other important persons. Professor R.B. Singh, I can see from here. I can see now our Dr. Mahapatra also has joined. I can see many assistant director generals. I can see the senior officers, our Deputy Director General, Dr. Sharma and others. Dr. J.C. Rana is also there in this audience. To other general audience, we give the access on other platform, and that is your ICAR 75 lecture series.webconevents.com. But this platform is used only for few important persons. So with that, I hand over the floor to you, and the floor is yours. And at the end, if there are any questions by the audience, we'll just put up to you for your reply. So thank you very much again, Don Lucas, for accepting our request. And I request you to kindly deliver your lecture. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. It's an honor to be here today in the presence of such an important group of leaders of ICIAR, as well as many leaders across the agricultural research sector of India. And I'm honored to be one of the lecturers in this series that is part of the celebration of India's 75th anniversary of independence. So it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. And in thinking about this venue, we decided to discuss a little bit all this very important framing we are confronting today, that we've seen as we know as the United Nations Food System Summit, and relate that in a parallel manner to what is happening in CGIAR and how we are also transforming ourselves to help meet the 2030 developmental outcomes. So I would like to share my screen, so give me just 1 second, and this should happen very quickly. And I'd like just to confirm that you're seeing my screen. I guess yes, you're seeing my
yes, we can see.
Excellent. So the idea is to work in the coming 20-25 minutes on this parallel on CGIAR's engagement in the post-UN Food System Summit. And when we say post-UN Food System Summit, it's because about a month ago we had, after more than 2 years preparation, the Food System Summit. But however, as we saw from the general statement and other elements, this summit was just a milestone in a long-term avenue of food systems transformation globally, and of course grounded in what happens across countries in our globe. Okay, so basically 2021 is a very important year for Food System Summit, not only because of the United Nations Food System Summit, but also because we have a lot of the work that's preparing humanity for the Convention of Biological Diversity next year. We have COP26, the Climate Convention, in a month, and we're in a week, sorry. And we're seeing that all of these elements have been accounted for and integrated somehow in this huge dialogue, collective dialogue of the UN Food System Summit that was set up as a People's Summit. And when the Secretary talked about a People's Summit, was going beyond the intergovernmental way of doing things in the United Nations to really up and listen to the voices of civil society, of farmers, of practitioners, of academia, etc., on what would be a way forward for food systems transformation. And there was this beautiful and very, exciting exercise of crowdsourcing, of asking, across the globe for, okay, where do you have solutions that are well grounded, that can come from a community or from a regional or even a global level, that can, be an important input for this food systems transformation. And we received, or the summit process received, more than 2,200 solutions that were collected through surveys, through the 5 action tracks that were established by the Secretariat of the summit, and also through member countries and very significantly food systems dialogues, such as the one India had on April of this year. And then we had the very big challenge of what to do, how to manage 2,200 solutions to give some sense of direction of this food system summit process. What started happening afterwards was that there was a team of champions across the 5 action tracks of the food system summit that started to cluster, to bring together these solutions into a number of clusters that would become over time the axis of important dialogues, and they were called at the time, and this is early next year, the game-changing proposition solution clusters, and it was something that evolved. We started with about a grouping of a bit more than 100 clusters, and those over time, as it's so difficult to manage such a large number of clusters, that number was started to be brought down by integrating different solution clusters, and arriving by the time of the summit to what is now called a coalition of actions that basically go beyond what those solution clusters presented, and is starting to frame them with the backing of governments, with the backing of different organizations at different levels. So if you look at what has been happening in India, and we heard last week from Timo Hapatra some of these elements on crop diversity, for example, and how important it is. This agri-food systems national dialogue to advance equitable livelihoods pinpoint and really singled and identified those elements that your country is identifying or has identified systematically over time, and of course where ICAR is a very important knowledge and science backstop in terms of what the priorities would be for the country. And the soil productivity and restoration came very strongly. The different types of practices, organic farming, agroecological practices, and these practices that were able and hopefully bring more crop diversity into the fields, understanding the different trade-offs and needs of the Indian society. The need to empower women by institutionalizing rights to agricultural land as one of the ways and avenues to empower women. The importance of switching to local foods and traditional diets, which is something very dear to one of the centers I lead, Biodiversity International, and something that is being uptaken by the new CGIAR emerging portfolio. And then, of course, the linking food and farm subsidies to nutrition and environmental targets, which is one of these important discussions on how to repurpose farm support so it meets not only the specific needs of farmers, but looks at the larger societal level in terms of what farmers can do in terms of positive spillovers for the environment, ecosystem services, etc. So this India example is just one of the many countries, more than 100, that started working in these dialogues and linking into the summit, saying, okay, this is what as ideas, as priorities at our national level. And this was basically all brought together at the summit through a number of elements. The first one was a very strong, very powerful, very clear statement of action from the Secretary General, where, of course, the urgency of this transformation was very clearly stated. The second one is the acknowledgement that change happens at the local level, change happens on the ground, that even though this summit started as a people summit and it needs to keep involving in its governance, civil society, indigenous communities, etc., the way forward needed to be through national and regional pathways for food systems transformation. And we are seeing a number of countries before and after the summit starting to work in a more systematic way on identifying those pathways as commitments for the summit that will be a couple of years time by the Secretariat through a framework that's being developed to see how countries are really delivering on those commitments. So one important emerging element of this is the national pathways for food system transformation. And we saw, for example, last week, the government of Vietnam working in a post-summit exercise saying, okay, how are we going to calibrate and reshape our pathway using and drawing from all of the learnings and tools and elements that came out from the summit. The other important element is related to the governance going forward of the summit, where there is now 5 action areas that were recrafted to help oversee and support the implementation of the commitments of the summit, both at the national level as well as through the global coalitions. So we're talking now about 5 action areas, that 1 cross-cutting and 4 specific. One is about food, the nourishing all people. The second one is called Boost Nature Solutions of Production, which was a little bit different to the nature positive production that was more ambitious in a way, and that was how these discussions about production were framed. But still, that Boost Nature-based solutions of production is bringing all of this work of 2 years of the summit. It's the third one is advancing equitable livelihoods. Then decent work and empowered communities build resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stress. And then the fifth one is a cross-cutting one called supporting means of implementation, where things such as the true cost of food, innovation, the indigenous communities, and all of the data and the monitoring is supposed to be integrated going forward. And as of today, there are still discussions ongoing between the Rome-based agencies and the Secretariat in New York on how to shape this follow-up and governance mechanisms for the food systems summit going forward. The other very important element are what are called the coalitions of action. And the coalitions of action is the result of these solution clusters into elements that now have the buy-in of governments and institutions across the globe. And an example of that is, for example, the agroecology coalition, a coalition that's getting a lot of momentum. I understand it's the one with the largest number of countries that have already committed to its targets, and more than 30 countries are now part of that agroecology coalition, together with a number of global, regional, and local organizations. So on top of having these national pathways, we now have a number of these coalitions that are taking different forms and shapes, but that over time also be supporting and linking in a systematic manner to the national transition pathways. So in the case of CGIAR, just to give you an example, we have identified a number of those coalitions that are very close to our mandate, and where we can bring our research, our knowledge, our supporting from our technical expertise, such as one on zero hunger, one on school meals, one on agricultural innovation that has a very strong focus on climate, one on sustainable livestock, one on aquatic and blue foods, and one on agroecology. And we're doing this by supporting our different centers, the Alliance as an example, to sign up in those coalitions to give that support and to have an antenna that can help us understand how this very, very complex process evolves, so we can position ourselves to support it in the best manner possible. And then, of course, we are also, as I signaled, understanding how this post-UNFSS governance mechanism will be shaped, and how CGIAR can also have a role at the global level, supporting that mechanism from our knowledge and technical expertise. And then finally, the way we see CGIAR, and this is also related to our reform, is how we we keep working as we've done in the past, but in a more integrated fashion. Now seeing how we can also stand by and be part of this continuing dialogue from member countries in the elaboration and implementation of their national and regional pathways for food system transformation, and of course linking that to our new prospectus, to our emerging new research and innovation portfolio that I am going to cover, and that basically is the main contribution of CGIAR in implementing impact outcomes across different areas in support of the 2030 SDG goals. So basically, things in CGIAR are changing in a very rapid manner, and there is a very strong decision from funders, from centers, from stakeholders to commit to this new system that will deliver. And I was in a leadership retreat last week, and we're starting to see already some pledges and some commitments to CGIAR that are starting to, to demonstrate that this integration is capturing a lot of interest, a lot of attention, and that over time it's going to be much simpler and effective to work, and to contact and to liaise with one CGIAR instead of a number of research centers across the different countries and geographies. So basically, in terms of the what, we developed last year in a very consultative manner a CGIAR 2030 research and innovation strategy, because of course 2030 is that year where our commitments across the different conventions and the summit are brought forward. It's a year of truth. That's the year when a lot of things must have happened in order for people, planet, and prosperity to really be in good shape for all of us. And this CGIAR research and innovation strategy was set up in a way where we are basically committing to deliver on 5 impact areas that you see at the top of the slide, related to nutrition, to food security, to livelihoods, to gender, youth, and social inclusion, to climate adaptation and mitigation, and a very dear one to all of us, environmental health and biodiversity. So those are the 5 impact areas that frame all of CGIAR's effort. And of course, in order to deliver on those impact areas, we are coming with a number of impact pathways that have to do with capacity development, on how CGIAR innovates and identifies not only better ways for incremental innovation, but also sees opportunities for more disruptive innovation that can really accelerate our impact, and how we're also more effective in our advocacy, in our engagement to help strengthen regulatory frameworks, etc., that can facilitate the uptake of a lot of the work we do in partnership. And then going in a more granular way, how we rethink, how we engage at the country and regional level through a structure that works across 6 regions and collaborates with 3 new large science groups around systems transformation, resilient agri-food systems, and genetic innovation to help deploy a new prospectus, a new set of initiatives that bring all of the science of CGIAR under this effort that currently is accounting for 33 initiatives that are in the process of being designed. And then, of course, there is how we do this and how we partner up and partner better to make sure and to acknowledge that the only way to meet our goals is through partnership. It's through partnering in a better way, in a more systematic way, and making sure partners are less short-term, opportunistic, and become something more structural and part of the DNA of CGIAR. It's been like that in the past, but it needs to be much deeper in the future. So basically what we're seeing now, and this is something that will be launched in January, is that this prospectus, this group of 33 initiatives is basically bringing together and tightening in a significant manner what we have been using for the past 10 years, which have been the CGIAR research programs and platforms, the CRPs, that are brought into kind of 4 what we call coherent groups. And those are, and in the outer part of the circle, you can see these global groups, and the global groups are basically on system transformation initiatives, a portfolio of initiatives on system transformation, working at the macro level, resilient agri-food initiatives that basically seek to integrate knowledge, of course, from CGIAR, from communities, from farmers, from partners, systems thinking at the local level, and supported by genetic innovation initiatives that brings together all the breeding capacity of CGIAR under one group, and also seeks a number of efficiencies, economies of scale, and a much better understanding of what the market needs in order to really, deliver more precisely on those market demands. What is also very interesting is this fourth area that we are calling regionally integrated initiatives. And these regional integrated initiatives are basically one initiative, one very large effort across the 6 regions where we work, that basically allows to draw from all of these 3 other global groups and put all the pieces together. And this is where a lot of the downstream, the work with extension, the integration of knowledge, the innovation takes place. And these regional integrated initiatives is going to be over time one of the main ways of CGIAR to engage with the territories. And this is, of course, how and where we need to connect very systematically in a very precise manner to those country food system transformation pathways that are being devised. So that's also where a lot of the dialogue and the integration with partners, with government priorities, policies, etc., will take place. So this is kind of the way things are organized, and that needs to be done in order to deliver on those 5 impact areas of our strategy. So these are just some examples of how things are looking at the moment. Out of these 33 initiatives, about half of them have been already submitted for external evaluation, and in about a month we should get feedback from that external evaluation and make whatever adjustment we need to do. So this goes into the System Council for endorsement, and there is already a lot of excitement from some of the larger funders of CGIAR in supporting this portfolio. And if you look at some of those themes, you will see that it's not the same agenda of the past 10 years. So, for example, there is an initiative right there in the top center on transformational agroecology across food, land, and water systems. So now we have a CGIAR that's more eclectic, and yes, it has a very strong breathing thrust and effort, but also understanding that there are multiple pathways for food systems transformation that we need to work on and produce science and do research on, such as transformational agroecology, or understanding that we need to break silos and realize multiple benefits across water, energy, food, forest, and biodiversity systems. And of course, it's about building systemic resilience to climate, or it's about rethinking food markets and value chains. So you see in terms of themes that are emerging, what each of those boxes will become a $5 to $10 million a year program is basically the effort CGIAR is putting to really respond from our capacity, from our specificities, from what we bring historically to these new challenges. And then there is also some of these cross-thematic initiatives, such as the ones related to policies, related to foresight, related to digital technologies that are there to support the outcomes and uptake of the thematic initiatives. So basically, the way we are thinking about this is that all of these initiatives need to be very closely related. It's not as some of us see in our research organizations that you have silos and you have important significant groups of scientists working very effectively in a team or in a discipline, etc., but having difficulties to relate across the board. Here we are basically using, or we will use, our 5 impact areas to understand how across those impact areas all of the initiatives are contributing, and using those 5 impact areas that will become platforms in the CGIAR structure, with a small unit of scientists and a director for each of these platforms. These impact platforms will be the ones overseeing, integrating the data, and making sure when we talk about climate, for example, or when we talk about nutrition, that we can draw from all of these prospectus and portfolio of initiatives. So this is kind of where we are, and I wanted to finish with some additional element that's absolutely critical, and I referred briefly to that before, which is rethinking our engagement. How do we work with our partners? Not only with our traditional partners, but how do we identify new partnerships so as to improve our efficiency and grow with partners. And when we say about growing partners, is that we need to start sharing more risk. We need to start working on shared outcomes in research. We need to identify very well who are the better partners for the downstream work, for the upscaling, for example, and how do we leave a model that has been relatively opportunistic in partnering to a model where our partners are part of a partner life cycle. So we really, from the origination of a project, we identify the partners very well, and partners over time are, we work in stewarding and cultivating those partnerships and making sure partners grow with us over time, which means also that we will meet another very important goal of CGIAR, which is that of capacity development and making sure national research and innovation systems are strengthened and grow at tandem with us. It's about really building a more holistic policy engagement and also advocacy approach, and making sure when we advocate for change, we do that with, through, and for partners. So in a way, we've been working in parallel in seeing how we link in the best way possible to support the outcomes and the commitments of the UN FSS, and also how we are building and integrating one CGIAR with a clear view of both pathways as well as others, meeting at 2030, hopefully, to really celebrate significant achievements in terms of our developmental goals. So this is it from me today, and I'm very happy to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Juan Lucas, for this wonderful talk, for so many ideas which you have given, so many dimensions which you have shown for the partnerships, for advocacy approach. I think the key you have told is the holistic policy engagement and how to strengthen the partnerships. So that's really the key. We have to just see, and the ICAR from India can play really a very important role, because India is a major player in this food security, and ICAR is already taking so many steps already so many policies by our government under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister for the food security. But this partnership can further strengthen and can further assist us in making the roadmap for this. And I think the points which you have told for the impact areas, again, the key is how to go for the resilient agri-food initiatives. So that again is a very important point. And the genetic innovation initiatives, many points, I think your complete presentation was full of thoughts, full of carry home messages. And I'm really thankful to you. And we can see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, only suggestions are there. So I will request our secretary, Dr. T. Mahapatraji, and he is also the Director General of Indian Council of Agricultural Research. And he is chairing today's this important lecture. So I will just request him to just brief us what ICAR is doing and how we can have the more partnerships with the CGIAR. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Yuan. It is always a kind of pleasure to listen to you. The other day, we also had a presentation from you, and in the Trust for Advancement of Agriculture Science program, particularly mainstreaming local food system for nutrition security. And today, you have provided insight into how the CGIAR system is evolving, and more so in the context of UN Food System Summit and the kind of action areas which have been identified, and how the CGIAR system can best serve the purpose of the UN Food System Summit action areas. Certainly, the action areas of 5 action areas of Food System Summit are so important for every country and for the whole world. Nourishing all people. And when you say nourishing all people, certainly, it goes beyond just providing even sufficient food. How nutritious the food is, whether the quantity is adequate or the quality is enough to provide, whether it is safe to provide the appropriate, the requirement appropriately. So it goes beyond just food security, but nourishing is more than, just food security or even nutrition security. And certainly all future agriculture, as the agenda has been set, has to be nature positive. And it has to boost nature. And how do we really do that? So it's not just developing country agenda. It's a global agenda, and everyone has to have that responsibility of having action plan to boost nature-based solutions for production, as you pointed out. And certainly in the context of South Asia, what is very important is the livelihoods and securing livelihoods with decent work and taking into account the all communities, and all that. It's again a very important statement and action area. And climate change is real. We can't just wish it away, and we have to work. And the action area with regard to building resilience has to be always, and obviously CGIAR system has been preparing for it, and it's nothing new, but certainly, re-emphasizing so that we refocus our attention and see how best we can serve better, particularly we together. And obviously, there are areas which are going beyond some of the perceptions that we had in the past. As you said rightly, the coalition of actions are already there, and I'm sure the CG system is deeply involved in these areas. And you have also mentioned that CG centers are already part of these coalitions. And I'm sure the coalition should also build partnership, as you said at the end, with regions, with national systems, so that we, succeed in building what we actually, intend to in action areas, defined action areas as we go along. See, we have sustainable development goals, and many of these things are reflected in different ways. The climate is already one big agenda there. And food, nutrition, hunger-free world is a big agenda there. So these are already in some form or other form, they are, described and discussed, elsewhere. As I said, as a part of sustainable development goals. And certainly, while we think of implementing them in the context of COVID-19, so obviously there are challenges, and you would agree that these challenges are quite formidable. That, for instance, in the context of India, we're moving in the target, keeping in view the target of eradicating poverty, and the kind of growth we have in reduction of poverty was quite significant. And we were hoping that by 2030, we would be able to eliminate it completely. But COVID, as the analysis, several studies suggest that, because of COVID, this is increasing, particularly the hunger, and has actually spread its tentacles and wings quite broad at this point in time. And so we are actually taken back, we have gone back, at the global level with regard to the target which have been set for meeting sustainable development goals. In that context, certainly, on the CGIAR repositioning itself in the form of one CG system is quite crucial and vital, and providing technical expertise, as you pointed out, would be very, very important. And I'm sure, your whatever is being done, and we were discussing, we know, some of these aspects which are presented in CG system meetings, and there are several committees which are working. And I'm sure it should be quite rewarding when we think of implementing different action areas with specific action points under these coalition of actions and through partnership. And that's what is important. And CGIAR, of course, I must mention that India is a big beneficiary of the CGIAR partnership in the past. And certainly CGIAR's support to member countries and through collaboration to implement the national and regional pathways for food system transformation, again, is a very, very important highlighted. And I'm sure the discussion on this particular aspect, that how do we build this collaboration to solve these specific problems for food system transformation, would be very crucial. So working out nitty-gritties in discussion with the regional and national partners would be very, very crucial and as early as possible we address this and do this, sooner we would be able to move towards the achieving the target. Certainly, the research and innovation strategy, the 2030 agenda for one CGIAR is very much there. And I'm sure the kind of points that you have highlighted for informing a kind of sizable audience today. We had another discussion with the CGIAR, EMT colleagues, and even Marco was also there. So there was a presentation. And this presentation also highlighted, many of these points which you are actually discussing today. And today is a different audience, of course, and many of the participants are quite different. So it's a kind of, that's what I said, to CG system, that more we engage and inform, and that's always brings in transparency in our approach, and also brings in stronger partnership, and also brings in players who are adequately informed. So without information, obviously players don't really contribute significantly. So this is is very, very important. You have as you have informed today, and transforming food, land, and water systems in climate crisis is that speaks everything that we would like to do. We would like to address the food issues in the context of land and water, which is available today, and which are quite a bit because of climate change and that we see. So certainly your point, and I will finish in just another 2 minutes. I don't want to really repeat what you have said, but just to highlight the point for the benefit of my colleagues and for us, that we need more of disruptive innovations. And that's, as Honorable Prime Minister of India has been asking for this for years now, several years. And so that you have also highlighted, and I'm sure my colleagues have taken note of, and they would certainly work on this. And we need strategic alliance, we need multiple pathways, we need to manage risks, and we have to bring in resilience, and all the points that you have mentioned are so relevant. And the kind of groups that you talked about to bring such changes in the CG system, and in the context of UN Food System Summit action areas are quite relevant. And the 5 impact areas on nutrition, health, food security, and poverty reduction, gender equality, climate adaptation, environmental health, and so on and so forth. So they are all important, that India is also working, and with its vast human resource, which is available, and the institutional setup, which is available. It's a quite big setup, which is available. So institutional mechanism, government engagement in each one of these areas. I'll not go into the details of how how the government is engaging in each one of those, and so that would be quite interesting. That when we build our partnership, and in these aspects, these 33 initiatives that you said, 32, 33 initiatives, whatever. So I believe in each one of them we can fit in very effectively, and be a very strong supporter and collaborator, and would help in scaling up and validate the concepts and scale up all those proven technologies which are there, and that would be very, very crucial for our success, and also in other regions of the globe, and be a partner there. So holistic policy engagement that you talk about, I believe that we have been doing, and certainly it would be very, very important. And you talked about rethinking our partnership and what way we would be actually that, and that would be very interesting to learn, and to have more deliberations on this, that what exactly we would be doing and how we would be doing. India has benefited from capacity building, I must say this, in the CG system. And how do we in a very systematic manner do this and promote this for India and for the region, and in areas where we need most. So if there is a discussion on this, I believe there will be a new regional DG or director, or whatever you call, and and all the systems would be operating through him or her. And I hope that the person would be joining quite early or fast. And once that happens, probably this aspect also needs further elaboration, and with specificities, we should be able to address some of the gaps which are existing in this. And the expertise and experience of CG available in whatever centers, that can be taken advantage of. So I thank you profusely for sparing your time. As Dr. Agarwal has said, this is the 75th years of our independence. In that context, we have this lecture series, and you are one of those persons who have enlightened us and provided some new insights into what is really happening in the One CG platform, how things are evolving, and how partnership can be redefined, and so that the regions and countries can reposition and work in close collaboration to address these concerns and issues which are highlighted. So once again, I thank you very much, and we have very senior our colleagues and then guides who have been torchbearers with regard to Indian agriculture. Professor R.B. Singh, our guide and teacher, who has been attending almost all lectures, and he was there in FAO as a deputy, and and also as assistant DG. So has many senior positions he has occupied, and so he's also here today. So thank you very much, sir, for attending this, and also in the process encouraging us. And so you have been such a inspiring personality for all of us. So thank you very much for joining. There are several vice chancellors and directors, and on my DDG colleagues, all of them are there. So I thank all of you from my side. So Dr. Agarwal, back to you.
Thank you very much, sir, for nicely summarizing and giving your viewpoints about the various roles and responsibilities of ICAR and the possible collaborations between CGIAR and ICAR. So, Dr. John Lucas, thank you very much. And I'm again delighted to inform you that this lecture has been attended by many senior persons. As Dr. Mahapatra, our Honorable Secretary, has told, we have Professor R.B. Singh, we have many, our Deputy Director General, Dr. Sharma. Even from outside the system, we have Madam Shalini Bhutani, who is a very noted lawyer. She is also attending this lecture. We have many other from NVPGR, the complete NVPGR regional stations, they are attending today's lecture because they are the one. And to name a few, I just told the persons, but there are many other key persons who plays a very important role in India's food security, in making the roadmap of India for this food security, nutritional security, and the all associated activities with this. So please stay connected with this. And the next lecture we have on 1st of November by Dr. Mangla Rai, our former Director General. And thank you again, all those who are associated from CGIAR in making it a success. Thank you, Dr. John Lucas, again for this and your role, your staff.
Thank you,
everybody else.
Dr. Lucas, it's always a pleasure to meet you virtually.
It's a great pleasure. Let me just again thank you all for being here today. It's been an honor, but I also want to say that this reform is, and I've been in many reforms, much smaller ones. This is a very big one, and if we do well, our impact on the livelihoods of millions should be greater, and that's something that's very exciting and that requires us to be very in our approach and in every step we take. And at the core of this reform, there is something that we call alignment. And alignment is nothing different than triangulating very well from the understanding demand on the ground, what is needed with what we can offer in partnership, and the feasibility and the enabling of environment and the funding for things to happen. And this is what is all about. And alignment, of course, requires that our relationship with you, with ICAR, with the government of India, etc., it's very fluid. And hopefully we will have our regional director there very soon as one of the persons that will help integrate and make sure that we have an India pathway where we can really contribute and chip in partnership in a very significant manner. So it's been great to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you
again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar.
Okay.